Blues fans will absolutely love this. After making multiple roster moves, Jim Montgomery gives high praise to two players in particular, showing how bright the future of this team is moving forward. But not only that, we get a huge update heading into the season as all signs are pointing towards this one player playing in a top six role. We're going to break down all this, the quotes from Jim Montgomery on these two players, and the one player that is going to turn heads going into the season. We're going to break down all this and so much more later on this episode. Before we get into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching. We're trying to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers, so make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button, the 53.5%. We're trying to get that number down to a 50-50 split, so hit that free subscribe button and it helps a bunch. But with that, dearies, let's go straight into this today, where we know the St. Louis Blues made multiple roster moves heading into the second half of the preseason. The big ones to look on were Adam Jiricek going back to the juniors, and of course the bull in the China shop getting lit out and heading back to the queue. Now the big thing with this, Jim Montgomery spoke very highly of both players, but one in particular was Adam Jiricek. He goes in to say he's elite with the puck. He's just got to learn to move and not take as many hits as he does. He's got the mentality, I'm going to take a hit to make the play, but sometimes you just got to do the work and jump by the forechecker. Now, there's even more quotes on this, and before we get into that, what is your thoughts on Adam Jiricek, how he impressed in camp, and his future with this Blues team?
Yeah, he was pretty impressive. And obviously, we touched on Justin Carbonneau and him being sent back in a previous video. But Adam Jiricek, we were obviously expecting him to be sent back. I don't think anyone was really expecting him to make the team yet. I think he's going to play a very prominent role for this organization in the future. That is for sure. But like they were talking about, a lot of players are praised for taking a hit to make a play, and there's a time and a place for it, right? We don't always have to do it just for the sake of doing it. Obviously, if you have the speed and the skill, blow past these guys and make a play, go and be selfish if you have to at times and score. But the biggest thing for me heading back to junior now is what he does with the Brantford Bulldogs this year. Obviously, an injury riddled season last year. He's already missed the first 2 weeks of the regular season in the OHL. But the one thing about the OHL this year is it's a bit of a slower schedule. They're trying to avoid as many 3-and-3s because players are getting injured playing 3 games in 3 days over the weekend. So the schedule is a little bit more spread out. So he's going to get back. He's going to be able to get into games. And hopefully that actually helps him specifically with not getting injured because of what happened last year. And obviously the style that he likes to play, taking a hit to make the play. And again, it's not a bad thing if you have to do it, but don't do it just for the sake of doing it. So again, he's got the speed, he's got the skill. I want to see him light it up this year in junior. It'll be a lot of fun to watch, but I think the sky's the limit for him moving forward. The ceiling is very high with this player. I think he, has the potential to be, a top four definitely on this team and a potent offensive defenseman moving forward. So I just want to see him light up the OHL, add different elements to his game. A lot of the same stuff that we're talking about with other guys, but staying healthy is also another thing in playing the game the right way.
And I mean, the big thing is we're seeing a lot coming from Jim, and he gives both him and Carbonneau a lot of praise. They're elite. They're going to be NHL power play players. We'll see that, but they got to get in the NHL as soon as we'd like them to be. They got to improve in those areas. Now, the big thing with Justin Carbonneau, getting a complete game is something that, yes, he needs to work on. We know he's a good goal scorer. He's a magician with the puck, and Jiricek needs to learn how to dodge hits and not get hit and maybe causing injuries. But the big thing is the future of this team looks so good, Darius. There's so many players on this roster already that, yes, not getting Carbonneau and Jiricek in does kind of hurt, but with the talent they have, it's nice that they have the options to say, hey, we're going to let you develop a tiny bit more in the Q, in the OHL, maybe in the AHL, whatever it may be. Getting these guys into their peak form and getting them to train into different aspects is a huge part. But the big thing with this Blues lineup, and listen, there's a lot to look at. We know there's guys like Dvorsky trying to crack into. Joseph has looked good. His speed is incredible. Adding this into the team does help, but we are starting to see a trend as we're going farther and farther into camp, and that is that Pius Suter is playing a lot with Dylan Holloway and Jordan Kyrou. Now, we do see a lot of Schenn with Neighbors and a mix of Stenberg, Dvorsky, any of these players, as that's probably the most open position on the lineup. But what is your thoughts on Pius Suter coming in on his first year, looking like a guy that's going to be stationed straight onto the second line for the St. Louis Blues?
Well, we know from last season that Schenn actually works really well if you look at the advanced analytics on that second line. So we were just assuming that Braden Schenn was going to stay there. But I think moving Schenn down and the way that he plays adds a different element to that third line and what that third line can be for Jim Montgomery. And not only that, what Suter adds to that second line with the speed and the skill. You went out and signed this guy for a reason. We were all just assuming, Shen looked good with those two guys last year before Holloway got hurt. Why not just keep it the same? But now they're experimenting with things, and I'm excited to see what that second line can do, because having a center as dynamic as Suter between Holloway, who's going to have yet another breakout, if you even want to call it that, or career year this year, he's definitely going to, right? He looks awesome. And then beside Kyrou as well, is going to unlock those guys. They're going to be able to go off, score a lot of goals. And that's not even counting the first line. What's Snuggerud going to do this year, right? Thomas is poised for another big season. So I think that's really exciting. And then when you look at the third line, you know exactly what you're getting with the third line. You can get some scoring, but you're going to get that physicality. They're going to be hard to play against, right? And I think that's a lot of fun. The other thing, like you brought up, they're kind of experimenting with that right wing spot. Dvorsky taking some reps. Stenberg's taking some reps. For my money, I think Dvorsky's a little bit more ready for the NHL and would probably be the guy in that spot. But they're giving these guys equal opportunity right here. Show us what you got in these last few games. And like you mentioned, the camp is being shortened. They're making cuts finally. Guys are being sent back to junior, to the AHL, around the league at this point, and you have a handful of preseason games left before the season kicks off next week. So they're really getting a final look at some of these guys, but also solidifying the rest of their lineup. So don't, gloss over any of these lines at this point. I think Suter is poised to be the second line center, and they might be trying somebody for that third line right wing spot, which I think could be very, very interesting, because we're all assuming at this point, after, things change on a day-to-day basis during training camp, and it's very exciting. We were all expecting maybe Matthew Joseph is going to be that guy, but anything can change at any moment, and it could still be Stenberg or even Dvorsky, and I think that's pretty exciting.
Because, the big thing is, too, we're looking at, we know Shen works with this, so maybe Jim Montgomery's like, hey, we want to get an extended look of Suter, the new face of the or not of the franchise, but with the franchise coming through. And the big thing with Suter, coming off an incredible year with the Vancouver Canucks, 25 goals, having a career high of 46 points. He was good in the playoffs just a few seasons ago with the Canucks as well. Adding Suter is a different element. You're adding a guy that, yes, he can improve on his faceoffs a tiny bit, but listen, you have a lot of coaching staff to help with this. He's a Swiss Army knife. He scored 22 of his 25 goals, even strength. You're adding a lot of talent around great players in Kyrou as well. So getting Suter in here does open up the lineup a bit more. You can put Shen back up if things don't work, but I do like Monty looking at this group and saying, hey, we can put him in here now. If it doesn't work in preseason, we know what we have. But if it does click, even getting him onto the power play, we could see the numbers shoot up. Listen, dear, it's the 22 goals, even strength. Do you think if Suter's on this second pair, and if he's put into a position of playing on the power play, do you think there's a world that maybe we see a 32-40 goal, which might be pushing it, but with power play time in a top six with a potent offense? What is your thoughts on Suter's production going into the year?
Well, look at it 5-on-5. He's playing in a top six, like we just covered, with Dylan Holloway, who might be a point-a-game player this year, and Jordan Kyrou, who's good for like 70 points a year and maybe even 40 goals. So you're going to find some goal scoring on that line. I think it's going to be an exciting line. So 30 goals, I think, is not out of the question at this point. They all know how to share the puck, right? So I could see him scoring maybe 30 goals. And like you mentioned, power play time is a big thing. The first unit is going to do their thing, but if he's on the second unit, he's going to see some ice time as well throughout the course of an entire season. So I think it's possible that he does put up those numbers, because if you look around the league, for example, guys like Alexis Lafreniere in New York, he didn't have that great of a year last year, but all of his time was spent 5-on-5. They didn't give him any power play time. So if you give Suter some more time, on special teams, yeah, I do see him putting up more points. I think that makes sense, especially with the players that he's going to be playing. So I do see him having a great year, just 5-on-5, specifically. But if you give him some power play time, a lot of minutes, even if it's the second unit, which it, would be, I think that, he is going to put up quite a bit of points this year. It's going to be fun.
And the big thing is he'll play on the penalty kill. He's a Swiss Army knife, no pun intended. He's going to be a huge part, and it's going to be exciting to see what he does in his first year with the Blues after having an incredible season with the Canucks. But let us know your thoughts down below. How long do you think it takes for Carbonneau and Jiricek to get into the Blues organization? Are one of them 1 year out? Are they multiple years out? What are your thoughts on Suter? How many points do you think he puts up? Let us know down in the comments. And speaking of comments, let's go straight into the commentary. Coming from Tom, and he says, I'm hoping this means Dvorsky will get the third line spot. Great job, guys. And that's the big thing. With Carbonneau going back, we're going to see roster cuts. If Dvorsky makes it to the very last day, there's a very strong chance we see him to start the year, and this has been a competitive competitive chem. Lucic is getting a bit of praise, but let's be honest, he's not taking that spot. Let us know, who do you think is the perfect right winger to play on the third line? Let us know down in the comments. But that'd be it this episode. Make sure to go leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.